104.7 Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, Dark Side of the Stream, episode 134. This week was Jay's pick. It was a documentary you can find on Netflix, Volcano, Rescue from Whakaari.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What's
heavy?
Well, it's about someone. It's about it's a island in New Zealand, right?
And it's just like literally the island is a volcano.
Yeah, and they offer tours out there, and you can go and check the steam. Yeah, you see the steam coming out. You see really cool things. Hey, how many times I've gone on in Hawaii up to the volcano and stood around the crater. So many times and looked and hung out up there.
But there is a big difference between those volcanoes, which are lava driven, and the one in Whakaari, which is a steam gas driven. It's a completely different type of volcano, which they knew about because in Hawaii, a lot of those things are continuously erupting. Yeah. They don't really stop, but they're not, since they're constantly erupting and just pushing out lava all the time. There's no like buildup of pressure, so there's no mass explosion or mass eruption like what happened in this situation. Because they knew what kind of volcano it was, and they all know there's a risk because when you have to sign up the paper, it says, blah, 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 you can get
I could see me because they were on a cruise ship. Some of these people were
on a cruise
ship. I could see signing up for that because, dude, that's awesome.
Oh, live volcano.
I'll go out there and check it out like
see
a private
the gases,
island. Yeah.
And the way they describe it in the footage in this thing was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Gorgeous colors from the rocks because, of course, there's acid and sulfur and all these weird things.
Amazing. You're out on this little private island, like, very cool.
Yeah,
but
really,
what
really
happens
cool.
if you go visit a volcano and it erupts?
And it erupts while you're literally trying to take a picture by the crater. So we will talk about what actually happened next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 134, Volcano, Rescue from Whakaari. So we've given you kind of the picture of what this island looked like off of New Zealand, and it followed some of the rescue workers, a lot of the victims, some of the people that were there that went back to help the victims. But essentially, and before we get into what actually happened, there were two victims, a couple that were on their honeymoon.
Oh, gosh,
and like, I don't want to make light of this because it's not, I mean, they both got horrifically burned and they still have the scars all over the body to show it to this day.
Yeah.
But like in the beginning, when they're sitting there talking and he's like, gung ho, like the husband, he's like, oh, I want it like you or me. It's like, yeah, I want to do this. And the wife's just sitting there going,
yeah, she was nervous about going.
She didn't want to do it. And like, and it was so funny because it's not funny, but it was in my dark sense of humor wise. Like it seemed like an cold open for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because they're talking about, going on this thing. And she's like, I don't want to do it. And he goes, and I remember her saying, is this going to erupt? And I said to her, there's no way it's going to erupt. And then the cold open is the volcano erupts while the gang is on the island type of thing. Because the dude, again, they did this 1,000th. I think one of the guides said she was like on her 1,000th trip to the island.
And the few times that it has erupted, they said it was always at night when nobody was out there.
Yeah, and they'd been used to that, where they would go out there and there'd be ash on the island from the time because it had erupted over in the evening. So basically, there were at the time, I think, 3 different groups, 2 boats, and then 1 helicopter that flew in. And the perspective from the helicopter pilot was unbelievable because it was his first solo flight. And when this thing is erupting, he literally he got lucky because he started running, jumped into the ocean and stayed under for as long as he could. So he got out scot-free. He didn't have any burns.
He did really well.
Went back in to rescue people. The married couple were literally halfway back when this thing erupted, turn around to see it happen. They start running. And then they covered each other. Now, let's talk about the burns for a second. Don't think like this was just like a lot of flame. The reason, and this is, I can't even imagine how bad this hurt. Hot steam gave these people like burns to the point where a lot of them died, cooking you to death because of steam.
Cool. And the crazy thing is, a lot of this documentary is cell phone footage from the people that were, because they were recording.
Oh, dude, that was
this
terrific.
Is so cool. Whoa, this is not so cool. And
yeah, and you can hear them
on.
screaming.
They didn't turn the camera off because they're running for their lives.
And it's just
wow, man,
and it happens. The whole explosion went for 2 minutes.
That's it.
And what it did in 2 minutes is just unbelievable. They talk about that, those steam burns, and it's like, the only other thing that I can equate that to is when I was in Japan, I went to Hiroshima. There's a museum there. I couldn't make it all the way through. It was just it was awful. But one of the stories that I heard when I was in there was that when the atom bomb went off, because no one had ever experienced anything like that, a lot of people that were by water would jump in. The only problem with that is atom bombs heat everything around them hot. So they were just joining in boiling water. Because you had no other, what else do you would think that would, so when that kid was talking about jumping in there, I was like, oh no, but it's not the same thing. And he made it out. And what the rescue workers did, we will get into next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The K. .7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens. This week's Jay's pick, it was Volcano Rescue at Whakaari. It's an incredible story. I implore you to watch, just from the perspective of a human. When you feel down on your fellow man, there are some guys that stepped up big time in this. So basically, the eruption happens at this point. One of the boats has already left, so they're starting to walk. They're starting to get out.
The island when it happened.
The other group is on their way back, and some were still taking pictures at the crater, and then the helicopter group. So there's craziness going on the island. The people on the boat see what happened. The tour guides decide at that moment to turn around and go back to rescue as many people as they can. On the island, people are like, oh crap, they're looking at the explosion, and then there's these commercial helicopter pilots that know that there's somebody out there. 2 guys jump in their helicopters and fly in.
A guy in a plane, they get
a guy, because there's no cell phone service, so they get a flat top plane to fly over to kind of help them be able to communicate to each other. While they're on their way out there, they're told by the authorities, we're not sending anyone, so you're on your own. They couldn't stop them because they were already on their way out there. I mean, I'm sure they were like, don't go. And they were like, screw you. We're on our own. We're already out here. What are you going to do about it? But you feel, because when they showed press conferences with the Prime Minister of New Zealand talking about this, the guy who made that call was sitting next to her, and you could see the look in his eyes, because it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You don't want to send any new people in there that could be, breathing in dangerous gases, another eruption, because they thought that maybe another eruption could have happened. And then your loss of life is even more. Because but at the same time, you want to get these people out as quickly as you can, because they say, especially with burns, like the first hour of getting them is critical, because your whole body's exposed. You know what I mean?
Brutal burns.
And they said when they came in, like they were running around with saran wrapping these people because like their skin was falling off. It was horrific.
I mean, you know how bad just a little teeny burn hurts,
dude. Right? I mean, what's the worst burn you've ever had?
It's small. Just the other day, I was emptying a pan of bacon grease and it touched my abs. And good thing I have abs of steel. But it left the burn mark. It hurt like hell. The husband talked about the fact. Oh, dude. The husband talked about the fact that he felt his legs, but it happened so fast on his arms he didn't even feel them because the skin just came off. And I know what that is. I don't know if I still have the scar, but I actually had that happen on my forearm, where I actually touched an engine, not on purpose, that was insanely hot, and it slid off my arm. And I didn't feel it when it happened because it singed. It just like skin melt, like slipped. And I because when they're describing this, I'm like, dude, I've experienced that on a very, very small scale. So relative to me, it was horrific, body, bro. But your whole body, dude.
So you
know what I did one time, just because we're talking about this subject. One time when I was in junior high, my dumbass made some top ramen noodles. No, not top ramen, macaroni and cheese. And you know how you dump out the water into the strainer?
Yeah.
My dumbass held the strainer like this and poured it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the same guy that used to eat canned soup straight out the can. Oh, that's the way they do it in Hawaii. I had no idea. But anyway, yeah, it's relative because we talk about what we know, and if those were bad, I can't even imagine. But one of the kids who lost his entire family, he was with his family and lost them all, burned head to toe. He was at the crater. Luckily, he got out.
He was resilient, that kid.
Oh my God, burned. I mean, like literally everything but his face. When they were showing him in the hospital, it was just like his face. But he looks, thank God he has grandfather. But God, when they showed them the list of all the victims, there were whole families together that perished there. 22 victims in all. The rescue workers were able to get in and get as many of the survivors as they could. But pretty much the feeling was that they looked around and anyone that wasn't moving, they just left them. Because there was, what else could you do? But it was horrific. And man, oh my God. And again, back to the husband and wife, you could tell he still feels awful about this. And it's not his fault. You know, you got to live your life. It's like the guide said, she doesn't live in a padded room. She does what she wants to do.
Right. And like, I mean, I if I was on that cruise, I could have seen myself going on that excursion to that island, because that's just what you do when you go on these vacation trips, you know. Oh, that sounds rad. Let's go check out the. Now maybe think twice. Hey, okay, that sounds cool. But what's the danger factor here?
Yeah, is this a live volcano I'm standing on? I don't know if I want to do that. Oof. I'll take the trip around it so we can bunk out if we need to. We will get to our conclusion and ratings of this documentary next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The 104.7 The K. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one final time this week for Dark Side of the Stream, episode 134, Volcano, Rescue at Whakaari. What'd you think about the what do they call those people with the face tattoos? God, he was badass, man. Oh my God.
He had some wicked, he had this all over his face.
Yeah. It's
like
unbelievable.
All in. That's all in for sure.
So at the end of the day, horrific loss of life, 22 total victims in all.
Some really cool footage if you want to see some crazy stuff.
If you want to hear a first-hand account of probably one of the craziest tour excursions these people have ever taken, it was worth. I definitely give it a 4 active volcano rating. Easy. Next time you go out on a cruise or an all-inclusive vacation somewhere out of the country,
think about the danger
and they've got those excursions, you need to consider what could actually happen while you're out there doing it. And maybe just sitting on the beach another day, getting drunk and eating food isn't such a bad idea.
Stay at the buffet.
Stay at the buffet. Make friends with your bartenders and tip them well. They will take care of you. So next week, we're going to do a documentary that just premiered on HBO Max this following week. It's called Moon Age Daydream. It is the documentary about David Bowie that was released in theaters over the summer. Nice. My eldest and I went and saw it at the Moxie. But it is an incredible documentary, and it's not a documentary in the sense of this was David Bowie, this is how he was, this is who he was, this is where he was born. It's essentially told as if it was almost it's hard to describe. You just need to watch it because it's not like you think. It's not like this guy was born here and this is where he went to school. It's just like it's essentially a montage of his life, all edited together with his different periods and music. It's so well done. Very cool. You should watch it on HBO Max. In the meantime, we'll talk about it next week, 9 a.m., 6 p.m. on my show and Jay's show. Stream it online, 1047thecave.com, on our 104.7 The Cave app, or live on Facebook every Thursday at 9 a.m. I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you, we watch movies so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.